The story takes place in 2022 in the luxurious neighborhood of Rosewood Heights, located just outside New York City. This area is filled with grand mansions, perfectly maintained lawns, and tall hedges that ensure privacy. Among these homes is the Worthington Mansion, a massive glass and stone house that reflects wealth and status. While everything in Rosewood Heights seems perfect on the surface, dark secrets and forbidden desires lurk behind the closed doors. Emma is 35 years old, beautiful and stylish. As the wife of a millionaire, she seems to have everything anyone could want, but her life is far from perfect. Her husband, Ethan, spends all his time working, leaving Emma feeling lonely and ignored. She fills her days with shopping, charity events, and trying to distract herself from the emptiness in her marriage. Things change when she meets Amir, her new neighbor, who makes her feel noticed for the first time in years. Ethan, 45, is a highly successful businessman and the CEO of a booming tech company. He's tall, confident, and has a commanding presence. While he's a provider and a man of power, Ethan is emotionally distant and controlling. He believes that his wealth and success are all that matter, ignoring Emma's need for attention and love. Though he appears to have everything under control, his personal life is slipping through his fingers. Amir is a 28-year-old man who has recently moved next door to the Worthingtons. Originally from Pakistan, Amir is a Muslim and has an air of mystery about him. He's handsome, polite, and cultured, which makes him stand out in the wealthy but often shallow neighborhood. Amir is recently divorced, but he doesn't share many details about his past. Beneath his calm and charming demeanor, he's looking for a new beginning and a chance to move on from his painful past. Emma Worthington feels increasingly suffocated in her life as the wife of a millionaire. Her days are filled with loneliness, as her husband Ethan prioritizes his thriving business empire over their relationship. While their marriage looks perfect from the outside, Emma feels like nothing more than an accessory in Ethan's carefully curated image. She longs for someone to see her as more than a status symbol, a desire that deepens as Ethan's absences become longer and more frequent. One summer evening, during a neighborhood barbecue hosted by a wealthy neighbor, Emma notices a new face in the crowd. Amir Khan, her recently divorced 28-year-old neighbor, stands quietly near the grill, engaging politely with others. His calm demeanor and mysterious aura immediately catch her attention. Their eyes meet across the yard, a fleeting moment that leaves Emma feeling a spark of excitement she hasn't felt in years. A few days later, while taking her golden retriever for a walk, Emma spots Amir tending to his garden. Summoning her courage, she greets him and strikes up a conversation. Amir, who is polite yet reserved, is initially hesitant to open up but warms to her friendly demeanor. Their chat begins innocently discussions about the neighborhood and small talk about the upcoming seasons, but soon shifts to deeper topics. They discover a shared love for literature, specifically poetry and music. Amir's appreciation for classical novels and his thoughtful insights intrigue Emma, who hasn't had a meaningful conversation like this in years. From that day forward, their encounters become more frequent. Emma starts looking forward to her walks, often timing them to coincide with when Amir might be outside. Their friendship begins to grow, with Emma feeling a sense of connection she hasn't felt in a long time. The friendly bond between Emma and Amir starts to evolve into something more intimate. One afternoon, Emma visits Amir's house, claiming she wants to discuss his involvement in a local charity event she's organizing. Amir, while hesitant at first, invites her in. As they sit in his cozy living room, the tension between them becomes undeniable. Amir listens intently as Emma confides in him about her struggles, her feelings of being neglected and invisible, in her marriage. He shares his own pain about his divorce, revealing the loneliness he has been trying to overcome. What begins as a comforting shoulder to lean on soon turns into stolen touches and lingering gazes. Their meetings grow more frequent and secretive, moving from casual chats in the garden to intimate moments behind closed doors. For Emma, Amir becomes the antidote to her loneliness, and for Amir, Emma represents a chance to feel loved again. As Emma becomes more emotionally and physically invested in her affair with Amir, her behavior at home begins to change. She is more distant and irritable around Ethan, often making excuses to leave the house. She dresses more carefully and spends longer getting ready, raising Ethan's suspicions. Ethan, though consumed by his work, starts noticing the cracks in Emma's facade. She avoids his calls during the day and comes home later than usual, claiming she was busy with charity events or shopping. Wanting to uncover the truth, Ethan hires a private investigator to follow Emma. The investigator begins tracking her movements, taking note of her frequent visits to Amir's house. Photographs of Emma and Amir laughing together in the garden and sitting closely at a cafe provide Ethan with the evidence he needs. Anger and betrayal begin to simmer within him as he prepares to confront Emma and possibly take action. Ethan's suspicions are confirmed when the private investigator delivers a folder filled with damning evidence. Inside are photographs of Emma and Amir at a secluded cafe, their body language undeniably intimate. Other photos capture Emma leaving Amir's house at odd hours, a far cry from her claims of charity work. Each picture chips away at Ethan's pride and trust, igniting a deep, simmering rage. That evening, Ethan confronts Emma in their sprawling dining room. His calm yet menacing tone unnerves her as he slides the photos across the table. "Care to explain this?" he asks coldly. Emma's initial reaction is to deny everything, stumbling over excuses about charity meetings and coincidental encounters. But as Ethan's fury builds, his voice rising with accusations, Emma breaks down. With tears streaming down her face, she confesses to the affair, admitting that she felt neglected and unloved. Ethan's response is far from sympathetic. "Neglected?" he sneers. "Do you know how hard I work to keep this family in luxury? And this is how you repay me?" His anger fills the room, leaving Emma trembling, unsure of what he might do next. Determined to end the affair, Ethan decides to confront Amir directly. He tracks him down at his home, showing up unannounced one evening. Amir answers the door, startled to see Ethan standing there, his imposing figure radiating hostility. Without preamble, Ethan lays out his warning. "Stay away from my wife," he growls, his voice low but filled with menace. "You have no idea who you're messing with. I could destroy your life, legally, financially, or worse." Amir, though visibly shaken, doesn't back down entirely. He tries to explain that his feelings for Emma are genuine and that she deserves to be with someone who truly cares for her. Ethan's face twists with contempt. "You're nothing but a distraction, a phase. You think this will last? She'll see through your act soon enough." Despite Ethan's threats, Amir refuses to let go of the relationship, believing that Emma's love for him is real. However, fear begins to creep in as he realizes the power Ethan wields and the lengths he might go to protect his pride. After Ethan's confrontation, Emma is caught in the middle of an escalating conflict between the two men. Guilt consumes her as she sees the damage her actions have caused. One evening, she approaches Ethan in his study, where he sits brooding over a glass of whiskey. "Ethan," she begins, her voice soft and trembling. "I'm sorry. I never meant to hurt you. Please, let's fix this. We can go to counseling, anything." Ethan looks up, his eyes cold and calculating. "Fix this," he echoes mockingly. "You broke it, Emma. You destroyed everything we built." Emma's pleas for forgiveness seem to fall on deaf ears, but Ethan remains outwardly calm. Beneath the surface, however, he is far from forgiving. As Emma continues to beg for another chance, Ethan's mind is already spinning with plans for revenge. He hides his true intentions, telling her, "We'll see," before dismissing her from the room. Emma leaves, thinking there might be hope for reconciliation, unaware of the dark path Ethan is about to take. Ethan, now fully consumed by rage and a desire for control, devises a cold, calculated plan to take matters into his own hands. He invites Amir to their luxurious mansion under the pretense of making peace. The idea of a truce dinner appeals to Ethan's need to maintain the illusion of a perfect life, despite everything unraveling around him. Ethan believes that this dinner will allow him to assert dominance, to finally eliminate the man he blames for the collapse of his marriage. Emma, still processing the aftermath of the revelations, is deeply uneasy when she learns of the dinner invitation. She knows Ethan's temper, and though she senses something is wrong, she can't bring herself to refuse. She hesitates, asking, "Are you sure about this, Ethan? This is the man who you caught with me." She pauses, uncertain how to phrase the devastation she feels. Ethan's response is chillingly calm. "This is the only way, Emma. We need to resolve this. You don't want to live with the shame forever, do you?" His voice is smooth, but the coldness behind it sends a shiver down Emma's spine. As the evening approaches, Emma reluctantly agrees to host the dinner. Despite her concerns, she cannot anticipate the violence that is about to unfold. She prepares the meal as usual, attempting to create a normal atmosphere, but every step feels like a prelude to disaster. When Amir arrives, polite and composed, he doesn't suspect the trap waiting for him. The dinner begins with strained small talk. Emma is visibly uncomfortable, trying to maintain the illusion of normalcy, while Ethan's silence feels heavier with each passing moment. The table is set with the finest china, the atmosphere tense. The luxury surrounding them only serves to highlight the emotional distance that has grown between them. Amir, though initially cordial, becomes uneasy as the evening wears on. There's something in Ethan's eyes, something calculating that makes him feel like an intruder. But he forces himself to stay composed, thinking that maybe they can find some understanding. He doesn't know that Ethan's invitation is just a fey-aid for what's to come. The dinner, meant to serve as a peaceful resolution, soon spirals into a verbal battlefield. Ethan, unable to contain his anger any longer, begins to openly accuse Amir of ruining his life. His words are sharp, biting, full of resentment. "You've destroyed everything, Amir. My marriage, my trust, my peace of mind. You've taken my wife from me." Amir, taken aback by the sudden accusation, tries to defend himself, his voice steady but laced with confusion. "I never meant for any of this to happen. I care about Emma. She's not happy, Ethan. She needed someone who could give her attention, someone who wouldn't just ignore her." But Ethan is beyond reasoning. His fury blinds him to any other explanation. "You think you know her better than I do? You think you can just take what's mine and walk away with it?" His voice grows louder, each word an eruption of years of pent-up frustration. The dinner table becomes a battleground. Clinking of cutlery stops as the men stand up, towering over each other. Tension crackles in the air. Emma, already nervous and tense, watches helplessly as the fight intensifies. A sense of dread grips her. She wants to stop them, to make them see reason, but it's already too late. Ethan takes a step toward Amir, his eyes cold with malice. You think she loves you? She's just using you, a distraction. She's always been mine, and you're nothing more than a fool. Amir, unable to keep his composure any longer, steps forward, his fists clenched, ready to defend his honor and the woman he loves. The situation is spiraling out of control, and neither man can back down. The confrontation reaches its breaking point. Ethan, in a fit of rage, grabs a steak knife from the table, his hand shaking but determined. Amir, shocked, attempts to push Ethan away, but the struggle is too quick. With a swift, violent motion, Ethan plunges the knife into Amir's chest. The sound of the knife slicing through flesh is sickening, followed by a strangled gasp from Amir. His face contorts in pain and disbelief as he stumbles back, his hand clutching the wound in a futile attempt to stop the bleeding. Blood pours from the wound, splattering onto the pristine white tablecloth. Emma gasps, her breath catching in her throat as she watches in horror. Amir collapses to the ground, his life draining out of him in front of her. Emma freezes, her mind struggling to comprehend what she's just witnessed. The man she once loved, the man who had given her attention and affection, now lies dying in a pool of his own blood at her feet. Ethan stands above him, the knife still gripped in his hand, his expression dark and emotionless. No, no. Emma cries out in terror, rushing to Amir's side. She kneels beside him, her hands trembling as she tries to apply pressure to his wound. Please, Amir, stay with me. Don't leave me. But there's no response. Amir's breathing slows, his face pale. Emma can feel the warmth of his blood soaking her hands, and the reality of what's happened crashes down on her. She looks up at Ethan, her eyes wide with disbelief, rage, and horror. What have you done? What have you done? She sobs, her voice cracking with grief. Ethan stands motionless, his eyes dark and cold. The weight of the moment doesn't seem to register with him. He slowly wipes the blood from the knife on the edge of his suit, as if he's simply cleaning up a mess. Emma's heart races as she watches him, her fear escalating. She wants to scream, to run, to escape the nightmare that's unfolding around her. But Ethan, without a hint of remorse, turns his gaze toward her and delivers a chilling ultimatum. You're going to lie, Emma. You'll tell the police it was self-defense. You won't say anything about our conversation, nothing about this affair, nothing about me. His voice is cold, commanding. If you say anything else, if you try to tell the truth, I will ruin you. You understand? Emma nods weakly, her mind spinning. She feels trapped, unable to escape the man she once loved, now turned into a monster before her eyes. The weight of the situation suffocates her as she realizes that she has no choice but to protect her husband, the man who has just killed the man she cared for. The police arrive at the Worthington mansion the morning after the murder, and the house is immediately swarmed with officers. Ethan, though visibly shaken, maintains his composure, carefully rehearsing his story. He claims that Amir broke into their home late at night, intent on confronting him. According to Ethan, the situation quickly escalated when Amir, enraged and armed, attacked him. Ethan insists that he had no choice but to defend himself, grabbing the nearest knife in a desperate attempt to protect his life. Emma, still in a state of shock and fear, is coerced into corroborating her husband's version of events. Ethan's voice is calm but insistent, and his manipulative nature is on full display. He reminds her of the consequences if she doesn't comply, subtly threatening her with the fallout of the affair being exposed. He manipulates her into staying silent about the truth, telling her, if you tell anyone what really happened, we'll lose everything. You'll lose me. You'll lose everything we've worked for." Though terrified and emotionally exhausted, Emma agrees to go along with the story. She stands by Ethan's version of events, telling the police she witnessed Ayamir entering their home, acting aggressively. Deep down, Emma knows she is lying, but she feels trapped between her husband's threats and her overwhelming guilt. Detective Laura Morales, the lead investigator, takes charge of the scene. She's a seasoned investigator with a sharp eye for detail and a tenacious approach to uncovering the truth. Her first instinct tells her that something is off. However, she's not convinced by their story. There are too many inconsistencies, too many signs of deceit that need to be uncovered. 2. Inconsistencies in the story. As Detective Morales digs deeper into the case, she begins to spot glaring inconsistencies in the story Ethan and Emma have presented. Ethan's account of the struggle seems too rehearsed, and his calm demeanor in the face of such a traumatic event raises suspicion. The police find no signs of forced entry, no broken windows, no signs that Ayamir had attempted to break into the house. The lack of a weapon on Ayamir's body also adds another red flag. If he had been threatening Ethan, why was there no weapon to back up that claim? Emma's behavior becomes another point of concern. During her interviews, she seems unnervingly nervous. Her hands shake, her eyes dart around the room, and her voice cracks as she answers questions. It's as if she's hiding something, or perhaps she's overwhelmed by the weight of the lies she's been coerced into telling. Detective Morales notes Emma's unease, her reluctance to meet her eyes, and the subtle signs of guilt she can't quite mask. Morales quietly observes that Emma is acting less like a woman grieving the loss of her lover, and more like someone trapped in a complicated lie. The detective's gut tells her there's more to the story than meets the eye, and she's determined to find out what really happened. Detective Morales' breakthrough comes when she examines Ayamir's personal belongings. In his phone, she finds a series of incriminating text messages, but not the kind of messages she had expected. Instead of evidence that Amir had threatened Ethan, the messages reveal a passionate affair between Emma and Ayamir. They exchange intimate messages, discussing their plans to leave Ethan, their dreams of being together, and their feelings for one another. One text, in particular, catches Morales' eye. "I can't keep doing this. I'm leaving him, Amir. I promise. Soon, we'll be together. Just be patient." This revelation sends shockwaves through the investigation. Emma, who had been telling the police she was a victim of a violent confrontation, had been planning to leave her husband for Ayamir. This contradicts her earlier statements about being terrified of Ayamir, and it reveals a completely different motive. Further investigation into the forensic evidence uncovers even more troubling contradictions in Ethan's self-defense claim. The angle and depth of the stab wound on Ayamir's body suggest that the attack wasn't a defensive move, but rather a targeted, intentional act of violence. The position of the knife and the lack of defensive wounds on Ayamir's body point to the fact that he wasn't trying to harm Ethan at all. He was caught off guard and unable to defend himself. The mounting evidence, coupled with the inconsistencies in Ethan and Emma's story, leads to a stunning conclusion. Ethan had planned the murder in advance, driven by his jealousy and desire to maintain control over Emma. He had staged the scene to look like a self-defense situation, but the evidence tells a different story. With the forensic evidence and Ayamir's phone messages, Detective Morales finally has enough to charge Ethan with murder. Emma, realizing that she can no longer stay silent, is left to confront the devastating truth about her involvement in the tragic death of her lover. After the shocking revelations and Ethan's arrest, Emma is left to face the consequences of her actions. While she wasn't the one who physically committed the murder, her role in the cover-up complicates her fate. Initially, Emma sticks to the story that Ethan had acted in self-defense, unwilling to betray him despite the overwhelming evidence against him. However, as the investigation progresses, she is slowly worn down by the mounting pressure and guilt. During questioning, Emma finally comes to a breaking point. She confesses the truth that she had been having an affair with Amir and had been complicit in her husband's attempts to manipulate the police. Her cooperation with the investigation is crucial in building the case against Ethan. As a result of her confession, Emma is charged as an accomplice for obstructing justice and lying to the police during the initial stages of the investigation. Despite her involvement, the court takes into account Emma's role in uncovering the truth, as well as the emotional manipulation and coercion she had endured at Ethan's hands. In exchange for her full cooperation in the case and the information she provided that helped convict Ethan, Emma is granted a lighter sentence. She is sentenced to 5 years in prison for her part in the cover-up, with the possibility of parole after 2 years. Her time in prison becomes a period of reflection and self-punishment. While she deeply regrets her actions, the realization that she had been living in a toxic, controlling marriage for years doesn't absolve her of the harm caused by her choices. Emma's life after prison remains uncertain. She is left to pick up the pieces of her shattered existence, facing a future shaped by the betrayal and lies that led to Amir's death. Ethan's trial is an intense spectacle that attracts the attention of the media and the community. The evidence against him is overwhelming. The forensic contradictions, the text messages between Emma and Amir, and the testimonies that prove he had planned the murder in advance. His defense attorney argues that Ethan acted in self-defense, but the jury finds the evidence too compelling to ignore. Throughout the trial, Ethan's demeanor remains calm and composed, but his arrogance and sense of entitlement are evident. He tries to present himself as the victim of a vicious betrayal, but the jury sees through his manipulative facade. In the end, Ethan is convicted of second-degree murder, as the prosecution successfully proves that the murder was not an act of self-defense, but a premeditated crime driven by jealousy, rage, and a need for control. Ethan's sentence is 25 years in prison, without the possibility of parole. For Ethan, the trial is a crushing blow to his carefully constructed world. The wealth and power that once shielded him from consequences now seem insignificant in the face of the crime he committed. As he is led away in handcuffs, he faces a long, solitary time in prison, a stark contrast to the life of luxury he once enjoyed. The life he had sought to preserve through violence is now lost, and his future is forever marred by his actions. The aftermath of Amir's murder leaves a trail of devastation in its wake. The small, seemingly idyllic neighborhood that once knew Emma and Ethan as the perfect couple is left in shock. Neighbors whisper about the affair, the murder, and the dark secrets that had been hidden behind closed doors. The tragic story serves as a reminder that appearances can be deceiving, and that even the wealthiest and most powerful individuals can be consumed by jealousy, betrayal, and rage. Emma and Ethan's tragic fall from grace highlights the dangerous consequences of living in a toxic relationship built on lies and control. Ethan's jealousy and obsession with power led him to murder, while Emma's loneliness and vulnerability drove her into the arms of another man, setting off a deadly chain of events. Amir, the innocent victim, is remembered as a man who had fallen for a woman he believed he could build a future with, only to have his life cut short by a ruthless act of violence. Detective Laura Morales, whose determination and sharp instincts led to the truth, reflects on the case and the emotional toll it took on everyone involved. While justice has been served, she understands that the consequences of betrayal and deception are far-reaching and not easily undone. In the end, the story of Emma, Ethan, and Amir serves as a powerful reminder that betrayal can lead to destruction in ways that no one can predict. The devastating consequences of love, jealousy, and rage reveal the fragility of human relationships and the capacity for dark desires to spiral out of control. For those left behind, like Emma, the path to redemption and healing is long and uncertain. As for Ethan, the price of his crimes will be paid in the confines of a prison cell, where he must come to terms with the devastation he caused, a devastation that forever altered the lives of everyone involved.